There's so much about this video and so much about the shoe that's very, very rare and very unusual. I don't usually do sneakers that don't run to an adult size, and these guys definitely don't do that. What you're looking at right now is the Kyrie 7 chip, and what I'll probably have up behind me here is the grade school one, because that's the one we're going to focus on in today's video. That's the one that we'll take apart bit by bit and look at all the different hits on it, all the unique bits on it, the totally out there character that Chip is. Didn't see that coming at all. So the focus is on the grade school, but because it's a full-size kids run, we might as well start at the bottom and work our way up. So here is the infant and toddler one, and one of my favorite things about the Kyrie 7 line is the way that they draw a real connection between the very smallest shoes and the very biggest shoes. It's a criticism of mine with the LeBron line about how far removed a low is from a high over at the LeBron line. But you can see it in this. You can see the toddler running all the way through to the larger sizes. So what we've got behind me here is the toddler one. You can see it's quite dark grey and there's a big ankle strap on there. And then if we trade that out for the preschool one, so we're probably talking about sizes 16 to 20 centimeters. The toddler one would be maybe sizes 9 to 16 centimeters, and then 16 to about 27 centimeters with this preschool one. You can see it's a little bit lighter, but you've retained that ankle strap on there. And then if we bring it back to today's grade school one, the ankle strap is gone and it's much, much lighter. And if there was an adult size of these, it would look very, very much like this grade school one. They're very similar, the adult size and the grade school size. So that's what I mean about that line that runs right through the Kyrie 7s. You can see very clearly the sort of evolution from the toddler to the preschool to the grade school and then on to the full-size adult run. But there ain't no full-size adult run for this one, because this is what I'm calling the very first back to school of the season. Back to school sneaker videos are huge on YouTube. I've never done one before. I don't think this actually counts as one, because usually the back to school videos is something like the top 10 back to school sneakers for the start of the school year. I'm shooting this on July 26th today. It'll probably go up onto YouTube on about July the 29th, and I guess that the drop date is on August, is it the 6th for these guys? And school's going to start back mid-August, late August in most of the northern hemisphere, so back to school. And I'm picking this guy out as being the first one that I've seen of the sort of back to school segment of the sneaker kind of industry, and I didn't realize just how back to school it was. All I was thinking was it's just for kids, it's just the toddler, preschool and grade school, so it's probably aimed more at the younger markets, and this is kind of the Nike and Kyrie 7 sort of stab at getting into that back to school run. And then when I got into the shoe and looked at the detailing on there, I was like, whoa, there's a whole lot in this that is very much specifically kind of looking to me like it's back to school. And this is all about kind of getting on that wave, riding that wave of the new school year, and everybody gets new sneakers and new shoes for the start of the school year. Now, I am the youngest of three brothers, and I remember hating going out in the summer to buy the upcoming year's sort of clothes for the school year. Now, I'm from the UK, and in Scotland, where I grew up, it was national state schools, not private or anything like that, but still it was school uniform. That's kind of standard in Scotland, school uniform. I know a lot of people in the States, for example, would have gone through school without school uniforms, or it would be something that you thought of as private schools as opposed to public schools. But in the UK, especially in Scotland where I was from, it was pretty much the norm to wear a school uniform right the way through from primary one all the way up to the end of high school, but not into university, just to be clear on that. But I hated it in the summer when we'd go out and buy the new clothes for the new school years, and Mum would drag us around all of these shops and trying on shoes, and I'm sure she absolutely hated it herself as well, but she always put on a brave face, always was like, come on now, try on the shoes, come on, let's get good shoes. And I just hated it, as if they weren't my feet and as if they weren't my shoes. But I suppose that's a rite of passage that we all go through, so these guys, back to school and all that, I have certain memories of it. We certainly weren't wearing sneakers where I grew up when we went to school. It was much more leather shoes and the like. So, and I used to go through like a pair of shoes a month, which is something else. But anyway, so that's why I think this guy is back to school. I think it's not just about the fact that it's a small size run. I think it's also timed to coincide with the start of the school year in the Northern Hemisphere, like I said. So, and then on to that discussion about this being called called the Chip. Now, I just assumed that Chip had something to do with the design. For example, if we flip it out and have a look at the midsole, you can see the midsole is a speckled midsole, and I was thinking of, like, you know, chips, like small kind of crunched up things like chips of ice or chips of wood or something like that. And I had no idea, none at all, that Chip was actually a character. So that speckled midsole in there, I thought was very cool, and it's like, oh, you know, that really matches the name of the shoe. It's got nothing to do with the speckled midsole, and it's got everything to do with this right here on the tongues. This is Chip, and I've never seen him before in my life. Now, I have no idea if he's a new thing or not. My feeling is yes. My feeling is that this character Chip is a new thing that Nike and Kyrie have come out with for their line, and we've never seen him before anywhere else. But if I'm wrong in that, I would super love to know about it in the comments down below, because for me, this is Chip 1.0, the very first Chip on there, and you can see up on the tongues, you've got that full-on in-your-face. I want to go with bear, but I don't really know for sure what kind of animal it is. And then underneath that, you have the name Chip, and then underneath that, you have a swoosh for the branding. Now, I don't know anything about it. I don't know if Chip is some kind of character in a movie, and it's a collaboration shoe, or if Chip is a Nike thing, or if it's a Kyrie thing. I have no idea what the history is, but what I do know is that it's much, much more likely that these shoes are pointing at the back-to-school crowd when they're putting a character like this on the tongues front and center and calling the shoe after that character. So to me, that's where this whole back to school sort of vibe comes from. And staying up there on the tongues, on the top of the tongues, that really reinforces what we're talking about in terms of the colorway for this shoe, which is very much in the light grays and whites on the shoe, and not very much else going on there, except the second place that we find Chip. And this is a common trend that's the sneaker websites these days, is that I used to have to talk about these kind of insole shots here, where you're looking down from above into the shoe trying to see what's going on in there. And as you can see in this picture, it's hard to tell what the color of the insole is too easily, and it's also very difficult to see Chip on there. But fortunately, the new trend is that people seem to be doing this a lot, taking the insoles out and giving us a great shot of that. And what you can see is the two major points here is that Chip's face is again there on the insoles, and the insoles themselves are almost an emerald green, very deep, strong green, which is in total contrast to that monochrome gray and white upper that we've already had a look at. So it's a pretty big detail on the inside there with Chip in there, but also with the colors going on the inside too. Now, speaking of colors, let's go back and have a look at the lateral side, and you'll see that gray kind of shingle effect. It does have a couple of striking white bits, like the bottom of the lacing system, the two bottom eyelets on their big chunky rubber white eyelets coming up out of the sort of midsole kind of area of the shoe, and because they're so white, they look quite large. And then also the outline swoosh, which is always common on the lateral side of the Kyrie 7 line, slightly different on the medial side. So it feels like there's quite a lot of white going on top of that grey upper on there, until you look at the medial side, which looks like this, and you're like, whoa, that's a whole lot of white going on there. In fact, sorry Nike, sorry Kyrie, it's too much white going on there. That's way too much white to have on the inside of the shoe. To be honest, apologies to anyone who disagrees with me, I think it looks kind of lazy. It's just a big old chunk of white, and they can't be bothered putting any design on it except for that second swoosh. So for me, it's a bit of a letdown when you get to that medial side, and you see how much of the ankle and the second half of the shoe is taken up in a huge splash of white, what's the word I'm looking for? Real estate. That's the word I use a lot of the channel these days. And then I think the last thing to do in this shoe, although no, before I do that, I'm going to do one little thing which really caught my eye, pun intended, is at the bottom of the lacing system on Kyrie 7s, you get the all-seeing eye very tying it up to Egypt and ancient Egyptian culture, and there's always lots of nods and sort of hints to Egyptian culture on Kyrie's shoes, and that all-seeing eye at the bottom of the lacing system is very much standard in Kyrie 7s. But what really interested me is it looks like it's on quite high-quality leather, which really surprised me. On a kid's runner's shoes, you see those high-quality materials, so I feel like these guys have a little bit more to offer in terms of the quality materials in a standard sort of kid's size run. And then the last thing that I do want to get to is that outsole, and have a look at that, which is, it's kind of a funny looking outsole. At first glance, it's kind of plain looking, you're like, but then the more you look at it, the colors seem to have a lot more going on. There seems to be a lot more kind of phasing of the colors from whites to light grays to darker grays in there, and it's got a bit more kind of character to it than you think it's got at first glance. So it's a pretty neat way to finish up this video, and I think I've covered just about everything that I wanted to. So let's go back up and have a look at the whole shoe, and hopefully the view you've got of it has somehow got a little hint to Chip up there at the top of the tongues, because that's where we need to finish this video. definitely a call out to anyone to give us any more information about who Chip is, where we've seen him before, and what his future holds at the Nike or the Kyrie lines. With that being said, it's time to wrap this one up. August the 6th seems to be the drop date for these guys. Hopefully what you got to see there was not just a good video about the grade school ones, but also the preschool ones and the toddler or infant ones as well. I don't think there's going to be a full size run, but I do think there's another Kyrie 7 coming down the line for full size. But for now, it's time to wrap up this video. Thank you guys for watching for another day, and the only thing left to do is to remind you that I do this every single day, and because I do it every single day, that means that you are guaranteed to see me tomorrow.